Have you ever wondered which faction in Skyrim is the most corrupt? I'm sure you remember this legendary moment at the gates of Riften, when you try to enter the city for the first time.
Hold there. Before I let you into Riften, you need to pay the visitor's tax.
At that moment, it becomes clear that this is not a real tax, it is simply extortion. The guard is not enforcing the law. He is using his uniform, his weapon, and his position at the gate to take money from you. This is corruption in its simplest form. And this leads to a logical question. If this basic form of corruption exists in Skyrim, what other forms can it take? I became curious about how corrupt Skyrim's factions really are and which one deserves the top spot. But before we begin, we need to decide what exactly counts as corruption. In this video, I will follow one simple rule. A faction is corrupt when one of its members has power within the faction or its system, uses that power against the rules, and gains something from it. This means that not every evil faction is necessarily corrupt. The Dark Brotherhood kills people for money, but that makes them criminals. It does not automatically make them corrupt. The Thieves Guild steals from people, but theft by itself is not corruption either. However, I will still include criminal organizations because even they have an internal power structure, a hierarchy, shared funds, and trust between their members. If the leader of such an organization uses their power to steal from their own people, betray members of the group, or make deals with the authorities for personal gain, then it is no longer just a crime, it is internal corruption. So in this list, I am not interested in evil itself or the crime itself. I am interested in the abuse of power. A guard who takes a bribe, a guild leader who steals from the shared treasury, a commander who protects criminals, the head of an institution who fakes evidence to benefit their organization. These are the kinds of cases I will count as corruption. This is why this list may seem a little strange. Some factions that seem clearly evil will turn out to be less corrupt than expected. Meanwhile, some factions that appear almost harmless will suddenly reveal their own dirty secrets. I will start with the least corrupt factions and finish with those that have turned corruption into an entire system. And I will begin with the Blades, the faction that I consider the least corrupt. At first glance, however, they may seem rather suspicious. They were once an Imperial intelligence organization. They are a secret order, they use spies, and they work in the shadows. It may seem like the perfect environment for corruption, but the main problem with the Blades is not corruption, it is fanaticism. The best example of this is the story of Paarthurnax.
My oath binds me, Dragonborn. Until Paarthurnax is dead, you aren't welcome here.
They put pressure on the Dragonborn and demand that Paarthurnax be killed. In their eyes, a dragon must die simply because he is a dragon. You could call this manipulation, pressure, or blind loyalty to their beliefs, but they gain almost nothing from it. They do not receive money, a higher position, protection, or a political alliance. They are simply following their beliefs. So if we are talking specifically about corruption rather than morality, there is very little strong evidence against the Blades. In this list, they are probably the least corrupt faction. Next, we have the Companions. The Companions seem like a respected organization, but they have a secret inner group known as the Circle. Its members hide the fact that they are werewolves from the rest of the Companions.
Yes, it's true. Members of the Circle all share the blood of the beast.
Yes, the Companions are hiding a dangerous truth about some of their most important members, but it is difficult to call this corruption. Of course, the Companions accept some questionable contracts that involve beating someone up or frightening them. However, there is no strong example of anyone selling positions, accepting bribes, stealing from the group's shared funds, or protecting criminals for personal gain. If Kodlak accepted money to let some rich idiot join the Companions without passing any trials, that would be corruption. But we never see anything like that in the game. For this reason, the Companions rank very low on this list. After them comes the College of Winterhold. Here, we finally find something closer to corruption, Enthier. He is a member of the college, but he also has connections to the Thieves Guild. He can act as a fence for stolen goods, and he suggests that if you need something that is not exactly legal, he is the person you should speak to.
Let me give you a bit of advice. You want to work on something that's not officially allowed? Don't tell anyone you're doing it. You need something you're not officially supposed to have? You come see me. You tell anyone that I told you, and I'll fry you from the inside out. Got it? Huh? Good.
Now this is starting to look like corruption. However, Enthir is not the Archmage or the leader of the college. He does not control who is allowed to join, and he does not run the entire organization. He is more of a shady middleman working inside the college than proof that the whole institution is corrupt. So, the college ranks above the companions, but it is still far from systemic corruption. Then we have the Bards College. And yes, it may sound funny, but even they have a small corruption-related moment. Viamo wants to convince Elisef to bring back the Burning of King Olaf festival. To do this, he uses an ancient poem as evidence. The problem is that the poem is damaged. Instead of honestly admitting that the source is incomplete, Viamo agrees to invent the missing lines. To be fair, the Dragonborn is the one who encourages him to do this.
Make it up? That doesn't seem appropriate.
This restored version is then presented at court as an ancient work. This is not dangerous corruption. No one is killed and no one is sent to the mines. But technically, it includes everything we are looking for. Viamo is the head of the college. He changes a historical source and his institution benefits from it. The festival returns, and the college improves its reputation and position. It is basically academic dishonesty for the sake of a good festival. Next up are the Stormcloaks. Their situation is more complicated. They have political power, an army, control over cities, and a clear ideology. But most of the negative things we can say about them are not examples of corruption. They are examples of nationalism, discrimination, and harsh politics. Windhelm shows this clearly. The Dark Elves live in the Grey Quarter, the Argonians are kept outside the city walls, and the authorities do almost nothing about it.
Skyrim isn't very friendly for Argonians, so we mostly just keep out of the way.
This is clearly wrong, but it is not corruption by itself. Corruption happens when people abuse power, break rules for personal gain, or give important positions to allies simply because those allies are useful to them. There are some signs of this kind of favoritism among the Stormcloaks. After the Stormcloaks take control, some cities are placed in the hands of questionable people. For example, Thongvor Silverblood becomes the Jarl of Markarth. A more direct example involves Stormcloak city guards. When a city is under Stormcloak control, the Dragonborn can bribe its guards after joining the Thieves Guild.
By the order of the Jarl, stop right there.
I can make all your problems with the guards go away, but it'll cost you. What do you say?
Done. Now move along before you get me in trouble.
However, this is still a weak argument against the entire faction. It mostly shows that the city authorities remain corrupt. The people wearing the uniforms have simply changed. For this reason, the Stormcloaks remain fairly low on this list. They have some shady moments, but there is little evidence of clear systemic corruption. Now we come to the Thalmor. The situation with them is also complicated. They hunt people who worship Talos, hold prisoners, carry out interrogations, place agents inside other organizations, and interfere in Skyrim's affairs.
We're making sure your Emperor wasn't lying to his elven masters when he agreed the Empire would give up false gods and foolish beliefs.
But if we follow our definition strictly, not every evil act committed by the Thalmor counts as corruption. They do not usually accept bribes or steal money. Most of the time, they are simply carrying out the Dominion's policies, putting pressure on the Empire, hunting Talos worshippers, and increasing the Thalmor's influence. However, there are moments when their actions come closer to our definition. Ondalamar in Markarth uses the Dragonborn to break into the home of a local bard, and find evidence that he worships Talos. This is an abuse of official authority for political gain.
Ogmund the Scout. He's old, respected, and I know for a fact that he worships Talos in his home. I want you to break into his home and find evidence.
An even stronger example is Ancano. He is sent to the College of Winterhold as an advisor to the Archmage, but in the end, he uses his position inside the college to pursue his own goals, even when those goals threaten the entire institution. This makes him a much clearer example of someone abusing a position of trust. In other words, corruption connected to the Thalmor is not mainly about money, it is about influence. They know how to place themselves inside other institutions and use their diplomatic status, advisors, and agents to promote the Dominion's interests. I would still not place them near the very top of this list. Most of the time, the Thalmor are not a corrupt organization that can simply be bought. They are an aggressive political machine carrying out the Dominion's policies. They rank higher than the factions we have already discussed, but below those whose corruption is much more direct. After the Thalmor, we move on to the factions where corruption becomes much more direct. The first of these is the Dark Brotherhood. Here, it is important to remember our rule once again: evil does not always mean corruption. The Dark Brotherhood kills people for money, but being a hired assassin does not automatically make someone corrupt. Its members are criminals who already operate outside the law. However, there is one strong example of corruption inside the Brotherhood: Astrid. She is the leader of the sanctuary, but when the true listener appears, her position is threatened. Instead of accepting this change, Astrid betrays the listener and makes a deal with the Penitus Oculatus.
The Penitus Oculatus. Marrow, he said that by giving you to them, he would leave the Dark Brotherhood alone, forever.
In other words, the leader of the organization uses her position to betray one of her own members, cooperate with an outside force, and protect herself and her sanctuary. That is internal corruption. This is why the Dark Brotherhood does not take first place. As a faction, its members are more criminal than corrupt, but because of Astrid, they still rank quite high. Next comes the Imperial Legion. For this section, I am including not only the Legion itself, but also the wider Imperial security system, including the Penitus Oculatus. First, even Imperial soldiers stationed in Solitude can accept bribes if the Dragonborn is a member of the Thieves Guild.
You have committed crimes against Skyrim and her people. What say you in your defense? I can make all your problems with the guards go away, but it'll cost you. What do you say? Done. Now move along before you get me in trouble.
This is a clear example of corruption. Someone with official authority is supposed to enforce the law, but these guards are willing to ignore a crime in exchange for money. Another example is Commander Morrow. He is the commander of the Penitus Oculatus, which means that he holds an official position of power. He is also the person who makes a questionable deal with Astrid. She gives him the information he needs to capture the listener, and in return, the rest of the Brotherhood is supposed to be left alone.
Surprised? So was I when a member of your family came to me with a plan. We worked out a deal, you see, an exchange. I get you, and the Dark Brotherhood gets to continue its existence. But you know what? I've changed my mind. You killed my son. I kill you and butcher each and every one of your miserable little friends.
Morrow eventually breaks the deal and attacks the sanctuary. However, in my opinion, he probably would have kept his promise if the Brotherhood had not killed his son. This means that a senior Imperial official was willing to let most of the Dark Brotherhood survive in exchange for the listener, and that makes the situation much more questionable. Morrow was using official authority to make a deal with criminals because that deal served his goals. But an even clearer example is the guards who accept bribes. They also have official authority, and when people with that kind of power ignore crimes in exchange for money, it becomes direct corruption. This is why the Imperial side ranks above the Dark Brotherhood. Next, we have the East Empire Company. At first glance, the East Empire Company appears to be a legitimate and well-organized trading company. It has warehouses, ships, guards, strong connections to the Empire, and a great deal of influence. However, most of this is simply part of its normal business. The real question is whether anyone inside the company abuses their position for personal gain. The clearest example is an employee named Gulamai. He has access to the East Empire Company warehouse in Solitude, and he uses that access to take part in shady deals.
Ah, you're just in time. I got in a shipment of fine wares courtesy of the East Empire Company.
If he simply stole someone's coin purse, that would be an ordinary crime, but when someone uses a trusted position inside a legal company to take part in criminal schemes and work with the Thieves Guild, that becomes corruption inside a legitimate organization. I would not say that the entire company has been proven corrupt, but Gulamai is a clear example of a corrupt insider. Now we come to the Thieves Guild. Once again, the guild is not corrupt simply because its members steal. Theft is a crime. Organized theft makes it a criminal organization, but that does not automatically make it corrupt. Yes, the guild regularly bribes people in official positions, and we cannot completely ignore that. Bribery, useful connections, and pressure are normal parts of how the guild operates. But the clearest example of corruption inside the guild is Mercer Frey. Mercer is not just a thief. He is the leader of the guild, and he has been robbing it from the inside, leaving almost nothing in its treasury.
By the 8th, it's gone. Everything's gone.
The gold, the jewels, it's all gone.
That son of a bitch. I'll kill him.
He steals from the guild's treasury, hides the truth about Gallus's death, frames Carlia and lies to his own people for years. This is pure internal corruption. Mercer does not steal like an ordinary thief. He steals as a leader, using his position to rob the very people who trust him. That is why the Thieves Guild ranks near the top of this list. Not because its members are thieves, but because their own leader turned the organization into his personal wallet. However, first place still goes to the guards and city authorities, and the reason is very simple. These are the people who are supposed to protect ordinary citizens, guards, stewards, and city officials. They are supposed to represent the law, but when a guard at the city gates tries to charge you a fake tax, he turns the law itself into a way to make money. And that is not the only example. Even if you only want to visit someone in a local prison, you may have to bribe a guard first.
Hey, you're not supposed to be down here. Official business only. Sure, that'll do just fine. Go on ahead.
And Riften is far from the only example. At the beginning of the game, Whiterun's gates are closed because of the dragon attacks, but if you offer the guard money, he may still let you inside.
Halt! City's closed with the dragons about. Official business only. Welcome to Whiterun, friend. Go right on in.
Even if you simply drop some equipment near a guard, they may try to charge you a questionable fine. And if you refuse to pay, they can place a real bounty on your head.
You shouldn't leave weapons laying around. Someone could get hurt. So, you pay my fine and you walk away.
Is that so? Well then, I'll have to charge you with disturbing the Jarl's peace.
But the worst example is Markarth. There, the guards do not simply ask for small bribes. The entire city system covers up crimes, protects powerful people, and destroys anyone who tries to uncover the truth. When the player investigates the Forsworn conspiracy, they are framed for murder and sent to the local prison.
We warned you, but you had to just go and cause trouble. Now we have to pin all these recent murders on you. Silence witnesses, work, work, work. We have a nice arrangement in this city, and we're not letting you get in the way. Now you're coming with us. It's a life sentence that's in our mind for you.
At this point, we are no longer talking about one shady person, we are talking about an entire system. In one city, a guard demands money at the gates, in another, the guards send an inconvenient person to prison. And throughout Skyrim, the people who enforce the law can too often be bribed, intimidated, or bypassed through the right connections. That is why the guards and city authorities take first place. The Thieves Guild is criminal, the Dark Brotherhood is monstrous, the Thalmor are oppressive. But the clearest form of corruption is when someone in uniform, with official authority and the power to decide your fate, uses that power not to uphold the law, but to gain money, influence, or protection for their allies.